Well, hello, and again, welcome to the 2012fad.com. I will be your host this evening. My name is Charlie Bluehawk. Last night, we chatted about the concept of the Morlocks and the Eloi, and how our masters are following a very single-minded path toward their own self-destruction. Personally, I have no problem with that, but first it seems that they have to wipe us all out in order to achieve their great work. Now, how mutating into flesh-eating man-apes is a great work is something that frankly is, well, beyond me. And this is not my opinion. This is the opinion of one of their own, a fellow by the name of H.G. Wells, who 100 years ago wrote a story called The Time Machine. And he himself mapped out the great work of the masters to survive the event, I suppose you can call surviving from being roughly human into a flesh-eating man-ape surviving. H.G. Wells actually projected this for his own people, and for some reason they're following this plan. Yeah, we don't really think like they do, and they don't think like we do, and I honest to God, don't know of any way of bridging this gap short of the French solution, which I personally enjoy. 100 years ago, the French started lopping off the heads of the aristocracy, the masters, but we'll talk about that later. Anyway, tonight I thought we would chat about how our diet is so bad, so poor, and so lacking in basic vitamins and minerals and, yes, believe it or not, metals, that we are basically falling apart from the moment we are born. And add food poisoning, lack of oxygen, lack of a strong magnetic field, and it's not really surprising that we barely make it into our 60s. This is very different than our previous episode on food additives and fillers, which is our master's way of poisoning us into mindless submission. Poison the body, and you poison the brain. Basic chemistry, and they are very good at it. And we are very stupid for following it, myself included. And I still have this roll of fat around my middle, around my belly, that will never go away, no matter how much exercising I do. I mean, I barely eat anything, I barely sleep, and this is for quite a long time. And I will never get rid of this roll of fat around my belly, and that's from eating at McDonald's 3 times a day for several years. It was really, really stupid, but damn, it tasted good. It's amazing what you can do with a industrial chemical factory making flavors for food. You know, back after the last event, after our Earth had been blasted clean of all the pollutants that our ancestors had left behind, though there are still massive areas of this planet that are nothing but green glass being the remains of a nuclear explosion. Some of these areas of green glass are still radioactive after tens of thousands of years. In fact, there are sites in India, for example, that have had to have been evacuated by the Indian government because they are still radioactive from a nuclear war that happened so long ago. You have to read about it in the Bhagavad Gita, which is a 100,000-page history of our world. And of course, you know, we are doing our very best to add to the legacy of radioactive poisoning. Someday we'll talk about the effects of depleted uranium weapons. These things, which of course the Americans are using all over the world, and in our own country, in Hawaii, for example, these things are so lethal. They kill the enemy, they kill the enemy's families, they kill the enemy's babies, and they also kill the soldier who fired the weapon, their families and their babies, their pets, their friends. It's really quite amazing. It's very similar to what we'll talk about later, cobalt-60 poisoning, which is the poor man's nuclear weapon. And that's quite scary as well. Now, you know, if you cannot wait for one of my, what I call executive overviews of our world, and you want a detailed, fact-filled breakdown on cobalt-60, depleted uranium, that sort of thing as a weapon, go to rense.com, rense.com, and look up all the interviews with a gentleman by the name of Tim Rifat, R-I-F-A-T. Tim Rifat, as well as the host, Mr. Jeff Rense, are both brilliant fellows. And while I give you, you know, the 15-minute news of the day, these gentlemen will give you the blow-by-blow, fact-by-fact, this date in history went to this date in history. They will give you the detailed descriptions that will explain this whole nightmare. I do have to warn you, though, even though I grew up with this living nightmare of spooks and Jesuit assassins and Vatican controlling the mafia and army intelligence nonsense, even I get overwhelmed when I visit rents.com. But you have to do it, especially if you have people that you love, that you care about. You come to me for fast food, the 15-minute news of the day. You go to rents.com for true education. So anyway, basic health, basic nutrition is not taught anywhere in any medical school in the Western world. Doctors get 1 semester of high school level nutrition training, and then that's it. I had, at one time, what we call in the United States pizza face. I had acne so severe that my entire face was distorted. Not that I'm much, that much to look at in the first place. I literally did not appear to be human. I had oozing sores all over my face, the size of golf balls, the size of tennis balls. And they oozed goo, I suppose, liquid all day long, all night long. And what was modern medicine's answer to this? Expose me to extreme sun lamps to burn the skin, actually to weld the skin shut so these eruptions would not occur. And for a while that worked. So after, a decade of more of being the Elephant Man, and the front of my shirt was soaked with the fluid dripping down from my face all day long. And my face was red and swollen. If I looked even male, you wouldn't believe it. And then one day, and I don't know how to tell you this, one day an old witch came to my rescue. And when I say witch, I mean that literally. This old woman was very smart, still is, very, very based in reality for a witch. And she was ancient when I was a child. And somehow she's still alive today, and still a bully and a thug, and, well, leave it at that. So she visited me out in the desert where I was working on a very major real estate project, and she barked orders at me. She has very few social graces. Well, then again, neither do I. She said, take vitamin C, 2,000 milligrams 3 times a day. Take vitamin AD, 2,000 milligrams 3 times a day. We now call vitamin AD omega-3. It's fish oil. And I'd run out of ideas, and I was desperate. So you know what I did? I listened to the old witch, and it worked. Literally, the very next day, I felt like every pore in my face was a window that had been nailed shut for decades. And then all of a sudden, each little window had opened. And I can still to this day remember the feeling. It was like a breeze was blowing through my face. The relief was incredible. And I was cured. Of course, it took over a year before my body, relearned what it needed to do to be healthy. And even now, decades later, I still take the occasional same mega